we're going to get, okay. We are recording this meeting. We are required to tell you we're recording this meeting. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. And I know switching the day had some people confused. So we do thank you for your patience. Today we have two. I'm really pleased to announce this because we've got two visionaries with us today who are speaking, and these are two people that I've known for some time. And as a fellow visionary, it's really an honor to have both of these people with us. Chantilly and Zach have. Zach, I know, is a second-time visionary, and he and I are at that same point. And Chantilly, I think this is 4 times for you, so it's a real honor to have these two people with us. Just a quick look at the agenda. We're going to spend a few moments, and we're going to get to know one of our own members here in the Nashville tug, although he's not local in Nashville. Then Chantilly's going to talk to us a bit about thinking like a designer. We're going to have a trivia time, and there are going to be 2 awards given out for the 2 top placing during the quiz. Then Zach's going to share with us how to improve our skills in thinking through public works, and then I'll come back and we've got a few things for closure. I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay. And Lindsay, are you set to go?
I'm ready. So today we have Michael Lane from Atlanta visiting with us, and I have a few questions for him so we can all get to know him better. Michael, are you ready?
Ready when you are.
All right. So how did you get started using Tableau?
Well, originally back in 2015, I heard about Tableau Public being used by Atlanta Public Schools as part of my Master's of Education training, and enjoyed how easy it made statistics. When I transitioned to data science, I learned Tableau as Emory University as part of my training in data analytics.
And tell us how you use it today in your work.
Currently, I'm a management analyst at Fulton County Government, where I use R, Tableau Prep, and Tableau Desktop to basically automate and unify vendor data across multiple departments, which include the library, financial accounting, most of our criminal justice data done by the courts, and human resource data. And then we funnel that all together into department performance, KPIs, and visualizations.
Excellent. Can you give us an idea of some of the business questions that you're asked to answer for the either government officials or staff members that you work for? What are some of the questions that you're trying to get at?
Sure. So one particular project that I'm wrapping up, in fact, this year, and I hope to talk more about it sometime in the future, is something called court automation. And we measure how timely and speedy a judge's cases will be the next month. So timeliness is measured by the 90th percentile, and it's a requirement in order to make sure the case obeys the 6th Amendment to the Constitution. So we figure out what cases we try to predict what the predicted disposition time, this 90th percentile, is that might violate that 6th Amendment, and then try to understand using R what factors might be causing that delay. Another project that we were recently involved in was trying to clean up a bunch of the HR training data, where we had about 4,000 Canadian employees with new HR trainings given by 10 independent contractor organizations. And they needed to know which managers needed to be notified in order to know who had completed the training and who didn't. We used Tableau Prep for that. A more interesting one that was recent is we are currently measuring the current case court backlog due to COVID-19 because we're receiving federal funds for that. And we're trying to compare the post COVID-19 backlog cases to the COVID-19 backlog cases to figure out kind of where their status is and make sure each cases are falling in line as we slowly phase out the COVID relief funds.
Excellent. You said you used Tableau Prep a great deal. Are there some favorite features in Tableau Prep that you like to use or that you'd like to share with us in case we haven't used them yet?
I don't have a particularly favorite feature, but some of the ones that I've enjoyed are in fact the JavaScript embedding API, as well as creating a local RShiny server in order to debug Tableau. I believe Juan Manuel's Biz story was a good example of how to actually do that, but he sorted the source documentation, and David Durston's actual questions in Tableau go into that in a lot of detail.
Excellent. And for those, I've just dropped in Juan Manuel Parafen's Biz story that Michael was just speaking about, so you can look that up on your own. And are there things that you would like to learn more about in Tableau that like maybe we could offer in a session here through the Nashville Tug? We're always interested in what people want to know next and where we can target our speakers. If you have some things you'd like to share with us.
Well, two things. One, I always think it's very important to talk about how to design more effective dashboards, because I face many a long time on the calculation side, and that's kind of something that I want to grow and improve on, is more the formatting and making sure the layout is as effective as it can be for all learners, not just ones that are very calculation heavy and statistically heavy. The other thing is recently our studio has been making some grounds in Tableau, and they are trying to actually replace the current RServe environment. But I actually have not seen them give an official talk at any of the user groups internationally about their work. So it might be interesting to have our studio give a talk about the shiny Tableau and what they're currently doing.
Okay, sounds good. We'll write it down. And just for the new beginners out there in our Tableau community, are there some really, good resources that you've helped, teach yourself Tableau along the way? Are there things that we may not have heard about that you have found useful?
Yes, installing RServe. If you link to the Tableau HQ, that's a very hard to find link, but if you ever need to install R and Tableau integration, I'd recommend watching those videos. If you need to repair a Tableau database, I recommend learning regex, and Geekalicious is very good at teaching regex, especially from a Tableau perspective, because the way he teaches it is it's the same type of regular expressions that Tableau uses. It's the same syntax. And then I would say Shiny Tableau, if you could skip to the Epsilon link that I shared with that. That's that. And I recommend prepping data if you're trying to learn Tableau prep.
Excellent. I've also enjoyed prepping data. They used to email, once a week with the data challenge of using Tableau prep. And I think I've interacted with the Tableau leaders for the prepping data, and they have had difficulties with the email distribution, but you can always go on each week and they will have a challenge set up for you. And it's a fun way to get to know the product and getting to use Tableau prep at a more functional level, improving your skills. Well, thank you so much, Michael. We really appreciate you spending time with us and sharing what you've learned through Tableau and where we can go next with our Tableau Nashville community. So thank you so much.
No problem.
Our first speaker is my sister, Chantilly Jaggernard, who will be talking about thinking like a designer in Tableau. Chantilly's mission is to empower corporations.
I'm guessing that didn't share.
I'm sorry, just to fill in everybody what's going on here. Sekou couldn't be with us today. So Sekou's going to announce introduce our two speakers, and he's done a recording. So we're having just a little technical glitch.
It's not sharing the screen. So I'm going to cancel the advanced option there and just go with the basic. How about that? There we go.
Our first speaker is my sister, Chantilly Jaggernard, who will be talking about thinking like a designer in Tableau. Chantilly's mission is to empower corporations and individuals through the use of data visualization and data analytics. She is a 4-year Tableau visionary who specializes in data visualization, data analytics, design, and training. Currently, she is the Vice President of Data Visualization and Training at Lovelytics based in Arlington, Virginia. Prior to joining Lovelytics, Chantilly worked for Johnson & Johnson and Comcast. In addition to her day job, Chantilly is the founder and CEO of the nonprofit organization Millennials and Data, #MAD. Through MAD, she works to bridge the data literacy and analytical skills gaps by training, mentoring, and preparing millennials to enter a data-driven global environment. Take it away, Chantilly.
All righty, let me go ahead and share my screen. Thank you all so much for having me today. Can you see my screen?
We can see your screen, Chantilly.
All right,
You're
perfect.
good.
All right. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you all so much for having me today. I have the pleasure of speaking to you all about design secrets for a non-designer, and I like to call this one the business edition. Now, with that, I'm Chantilly Jaggernauth, Vice President of Data Analytics at Lovelytics, a Tableau partner company based out of Arlington, Virginia, and I'm also a 4-time Tableau visionary. But most importantly, I do not consider myself a designer. And to illustrate why I don't consider myself a designer, I have to take you back in my Tableau journey. So my Tableau journey began in 2010, 2011. I was a student at Howard University, and my professor provided us with an assignment and said, make sense of this data. And at that point, the only tool that I knew how to use was Excel. But the trick was that this data was just way too massive to even open up in Excel. So through a quick Google search, I ran into Tableau that night, watched a couple of YouTube videos, and these were the very first Tableau charts that I ever created. And as you can see, I didn't even take off the sheet 4 header at the top before I presented it to the class the next day. But I decided that I wanted to make Tableau my thing. I picked up on some tips and tricks by joining the Tableau community, creating a Tableau public profile. And these are some of the visualizations that I was able to create over the years personally. And here are some of the ones I was able to create professionally. All of this without having any graphic design experience, any design experience, and really, no formal Tableau training. So the goal of today's session is to show you how you can go from your basic Tableau visualizations that you see on the left-hand side to more, visually appealing visualizations like you see on the right-hand side. So my 5 design secrets. First, how do we effectively gather requirements? Because 90% or even like 80% of our dashboarding projects start with requirements typically from key stakeholders. Then from there, how do we go about building a template instead of going right into Tableau and starting to create worksheets? How do we organize our dashboards effectively so that we can smoothly build out all of those worksheets and place them on a dashboard? How do we use icons and art to our advantage? How do we pick colors strategically? And then how do we keep it really simple with fonts? So gathering requirements. The first thing that you typically want to do when you are presented with a new dashboarding project is you want to make sure you understand the overall goal of the project. Now, I highlight this as my first point because typically if there's a project that's like 3 or 6 months long, sometimes that overall goal can just get pushed to the back of your mind. So you always want to make sure that you keep in mind exactly what your end user is looking for. Now you want to make sure you also understand your audience's analytical maturity. So based on who's going to be using the dashboard, are they familiar with Tableau? Are they familiar with data visualizations and data analytics in general? What type of reporting did they use before? Was it just static reporting where they were looking at a couple of Excel files, a PDF reporting? You want to know these things pretty early on because, say, for instance, you're creating a dashboard for an executive who has never used Tableau before, never even logged into the Tableau server. You want to make sure you don't really have a super interactive Tableau dashboard. You want to make sure you have something that could probably get printed to a PDF or put into a PowerPoint so that executive doesn't have struggles in trying to use Tableau server versus a Tableau analyst or a Tableau developer who's, years into the tool. They might be somebody you want to create more of like an exploratory type of dashboard for. So always important to understand your audience's analytical maturity. Next, you want to get an understanding of your end user's preferences. Are they looking to display this on a tablet device, a mobile device, or a desktop? Do they want this auto size? Are they okay with floating containers within the dashboard? All of that's super important because you never want to be in a situation where you create a dashboard that's all floating, and then all of a sudden your end user says, hey, you know, can we have this auto size for our end user screens? And now you're like, oh shoot, I have to change everything from floating to tile. So you always want to understand your end user's preferences pretty early on. Next, you want to refine and prioritize those business questions. So whenever I'm presented with a project, 9 times out of 10, my clients come to me with a list of like 20 different things that they want on the dashboard. But instead of just trying to X off some of those things, I always ask the question of, you know, do you want to see each of these as charts? Are there certain things that can be used as a filter? You know, are there must-haves? Are there nice-to-haves? You know, things like that. I want to make sure that we try to distill that list maybe to like 5 or 10 requirements max. Then I also like to do a high level data discovery. You never want to be in a situation where you have requirements, you're starting to build out this dashboard, and then you hit a hiccup because you don't have that data available. So you always want to make sure that you have the data available based on the requirements that are presented to you. And last but not least, I always like to have a conversation with my end user to see if there are any views that they are already expecting to see. 9 times out of 10, I always say that a key stakeholder has in the back of their mind the visualization that they're expecting to see. They just never really translate that information to us. So the goal as a developer is to ask them certain questions. You know, is there a particular chart type that you want to see? Do you want to see a trend as, you know, 2 lines, maybe one looking at last year, one looking at this year, or a bar on a line? You know, must you see a text table? Could we possibly do like a highlight table instead? I like to have that conversation and make sure that I note any type of visualizations that they definitely want to see on the dashboard. So to help organize all of that information, I've created a dashboard requirements document. On the left-hand side, this document provides information about the dashboard at a high level, the audience, the display mode, the use case, and the filters. And then on the right-hand side, we have information about the worksheets. So a view requirement document. What's it going to take to build that worksheet? What are the primary dimensions? What are the primary measures that we're going to need? Do we need to calculate anything? Should we format this a particular way? Do we need to filter it a particular way? Where's the data coming from? And within the additional notes section, I like to provide details about whether or not the end user has noted a particular chart type that they want to see. So let me show you how I would use this in action. We're going to create an interactive dashboard that analyzes the company's sales data that can be shared with regional leads as well as the VP of the sales team. We want to know which subcategories have the highest sales, what are the sales per region over time, what are the sales profit and profit ratio for each region, what are the sales per state, and which segment and region have the highest sales. So I'll take all of this information that the end user has provided me, and I'll fill in my dashboard requirements documents. So on the far left, we have information about the dashboard as a whole. So our audience would be that VP as well as the regional leads. Display mode, we've noted a laptop and the specific device size. For our use case, we have a web and a PDF. So this lets me know that we could potentially have like a scrolling dashboard vertically. And then underneath point number 5, we've noted the dashboard filters, the company brand colors, and then we've also provided a link to a dashboard that the VP has seen on Tableau Public that she likes. Then we have view requirement documents. So because we had about 6 different points that we needed to have on our dashboard, we're going to have 6 different view requirement documents. And here I'm just highlighting one, the metric details per region, where I've noted the primary dimension being the region, the measures being the customer's order, sales, profit, and profit ratio. We've noted exactly how to calculate the customer's orders and profit ratio, noted exactly where this data is coming from. And under the additional notes, we've noted that the end user would like to see this as a text table. So now I have my 6 different sheets that are going to tell me how to build out the 6 different requirements that we had. And then my dashboard requirements document that's going to tell me exactly how to structure that dashboard. So from there, I don't go right into Tableau and start building out worksheets. I actually start off by building a template. So the first thing that I do when I'm building this template is I make sure I'm prioritizing those requirements and only using what's important. In order to prioritize the requirements, I have to have a conversation with my end user and ask them which requirements are the most important and which are the least. Because as you're building out your dashboard, you want to have the most important information in your top left corner and your least important information in your bottom right corner, because that's how your end users are going to read your dashboard, top to bottom, left to right. Next, I'm using text boxes or pen or paper or some wireframing tool to actually illustrate and create what this dashboard is going to look like. And the goal is that I'm just providing context on the different chart types that are going to be in those spaces. As I'm building out this template, I'm making sure that I design to a grid. If you think about how a newspaper or a magazine is laid out, it's in a column in a grid-like format because that is one of the easiest ways to consume information. And you want to make sure that your dashboard is in a visually easy way for your end users to consume information as well. While I'm building out my template, I also like to incorporate bands and add context to them. If you aren't familiar with a band, it's simply a big aggregated number. It provides a summary, information about a particular metric that is represented on your dashboard. So our dashboard is looking at regional sales. And at some point, there's going to be a question on what's the overall sales, right, across all of the regions. Now, instead of using a grand total bar in Tableau, which is going to skew all of your other bars to the left because they're all on the same axis, you can simply use a band and just have that static number at the top of your dashboard. You always want to add context to it, never just have a number and never, tell your end user exactly what that number means. As you're constructing your template, also make sure that you're using size and position to show hierarchy. And this goes back to my point when I said you want to lay out your dashboard based off of your most important information being at the top left and your least important information being in your bottom right corner. That's using size and position to show hierarchy. And last but not least, as you're building out your template, start to think about where you can place icons at. And we're going to have an entire section dedicated to incorporating icons in your dashboard, but show your end users exactly where they could potentially see icons at within your template. So here are some of my favorite tools for creating templates. We have Tableau. Obviously, you can just create a new dashboard and start dragging in text boxes and just adding borders and context to it. We have Balsamiq, which is a paid tool. I believe it's $100 a user, a lifetime license, and you're able to visually create exactly what your dashboard looks like. Then you have Figma, which allows you to also build out templates. You can build out templates very similar to Balsamiq, except Balsamiq has more of like a sketch look and feel, whereas Figma has more of a realistic display. And also like Figma for building modern dashboards as well and incorporating like drop shadows into my visualizations. I do all of that in Figma. And then you have Ninjamock, which is another wireframing tool that I know a couple of graphic designers that they use, but I personally do not use it, but it's just another one that's used across the industry. So for a Tableau template, what you're going to do is you're going to create a blank dashboard. You don't even have to upload any data to it. You can simply just use like a Superstore data set. You're going to create that dashboard, and then you're going to take all of the requirements that your end user had, and you're going to place each requirement into a text box. You're going to note the chart type that's going to go in there, and then you're going to place a border around it. And you're going to try to size it based off of how much space you think that worksheet will take up. And then you're going to also note your icons, note where your logo will go. And this is going to outline and, show your end user exactly how you're going to lay out your dashboard. Then you have Balsamiq. It provides a little bit more of a visual representation of what the end result is going to look like. We can see like some bar charts, we can see some numbers, we have line charts as well. So sometimes I use this for clients that, where that Tableau wireframe really isn't working for them, where they actually need to see some charts and need to see, some bars so that they have a better representation of the end result. And then you have Figma. As I mentioned, I like to use Figma for modern dashboards as well as dashboards or wireframes where we need a little bit more of a realistic look and feel than what Balsamiq is able to achieve. So with a Figma template, I'm pretty much creating this, adding the drop shadows, exporting this as an image, and then importing it as an image in Tableau and placing all of the worksheets on top of it. So that is one downside to using a Figma template as a background image within Tableau. It's because you have to have everything floating on top of it. So you definitely want to have that sign off from your client or your end user, making sure they know that once we size this, we cannot resize it because nobody wants to redrag floating items into tiled items once it's done. And once you have your template, go ahead and fill in your template. So here's an example of that Tableau template that we've created. And then on the right-hand side, we built out all of those worksheets, and we've simply now placed those worksheets in place of those text boxes that we had in our template. We didn't have to reconstruct our dashboard. We're simply just taking these worksheets, placing them here, adding the icons, adding some formatting, and giving it to our user for feedback. And here's another example of a Tableau template. Here's an example of that Balsamiq wireframe where we're now transitioning it into a Tableau dashboard. I will say that I actually add a step in between the Balsamiq wireframe and the end result. I always go ahead and once I get that sign off on the Balsamiq wireframe, I take this and I still lay out the dashboard in Tableau with just boxes. And then I go ahead and create those worksheets. And what's neat about this particular wireframe is that I provided another consultant at Lovelytics with the wireframe you see on the left-hand side. I did not have time to build out the actual dashboard, but she was able to look at this wireframe and create the dashboard that you see on the right-hand side. And here's an example of a Figma template. So we build these templates within Figma. Figma is free as well if you sign up for an account. We add the drop shadows to these boxes. And then we export this as an image and import it into Tableau, place our worksheets on top of it. And now we have our Tableau dashboard developed using our Figma template. And another example of a Figma template. And if you have a really good template, reuse it, right? At Lovelytics, we have a really simple Lovelytics template that we use for really quick proof of concepts that we're trying to create. So on the left-hand side, we've used this for a human resources example. And on the right-hand side, we've used this for a sales example. And what's neat about this, especially if you work within a large organization with a lot of Tableau users, is that it helps familiarize your end users with the lay of the land of the Tableau dashboard. They know on the left-hand side, they're always going to see the refresh date. They're going to see their filters. And then on the right-hand side, they're going to see the information that they need to about whatever report they're looking at. They're going to have those bands at the top, and then they're going to have those reports or those worksheets here. And this is also great when you have a team of Tableau developers in general, because now they don't have to start from scratch. They don't have to think about how to lay out a dashboard. They can easily just go to the template, and it also speeds up that development process as well. So layout, fill in, and reuse. So using art to your advantage, using simple images and icons can take your dashboard from basic to visually appealing. So the first thing that we do whenever we're selecting icons for our dashboard is we make sure we pick icons that communicate meaning and are easy to recognize. So if you see a home icon on a dashboard, that typically means you're going to go back to like the home page. If you see an info icon, you're probably going to learn more information. A data source might take you to the data source, so you'll probably learn about the data source itself. What this represents is just icons that your end users do not have to think about. So always have icons that resonate really easy with your end users. You want to make sure that you're providing labels and adding context for any icon that your end user has to interact with. So just never assume that because you built in that interactivity that somebody else is going to know exactly how to interact with it. So simply just have either a mouse over or something in that area that says click to return to the home page. Hover for dashboard description and information. Hover for information on the data source, right? Even for charts, if it's a chart that your end user has to click on or a button, have something in that area that your end user knows they have to click on it, they have to select it. Never assume because you're the developer that created it that your end user is going to automatically know to do that. You also want to make sure when you're picking your icons that you're using simple icons, nothing too creative. The reason being is because the smaller those icons are on your dashboard, especially if you're designing for mobile, then the harder they are to see. So if you have a simple house, it's going to be pretty easy to pick up on that. But if you have a house that has windows, doorknobs, 2 stories, I guarantee you your end user is not even going to be able to see that doorknob. It's going to look like a speck on the dashboard. So always try to go with really simple icons unless you have room to make that icon large if it's a creative icon. If you have more than one icon on your dashboard, especially within the same real estate area, you want to make sure that those icons have the same look and feel to them. You want to make sure their styles are consistent and cohesive. If you look at the first layer of icons here, they're all solid icons. They're all purple icons. Now imagine we had them in the same real estate area on a dashboard. If you look at this second layer, that data source icon is going to stick out. And if you look at this last layer, that info icon is going to stick out. So always make sure that your icons have the same look and feel to them. Also, make sure they're following your overall dashboard theme and color scheme. If your dashboard is purple and gray, make sure your icons are either purple or gray. You know, never just have icons on your dashboard that go along with your company colors and you're not even using those additional company colors within your dashboard, right? Make sure you're not using purple, green, and red within a dashboard that doesn't even have purple, green, and red anywhere else. Make sure your icons go with your overall dashboard theme and color scheme. And last but not least, try to reduce the icon graphic details with your icons. Your icon graphic details are simply like the curves and the lines associated with the icon. And this goes hand in hand with picking icons that are simple and not too creative. So here, you want to make sure you don't have a house with a lawn and a chimney. And the same thing with an info icon. You don't really need a magnifying glass. Just a simple icon is okay. So let's look at an example. For this particular example, the only reason I felt okay using green icons within the band area of this dashboard is because I'm using the Lovelytics logo in the top right corner, and it has that blue as well as that green. If I didn't have that Lovelytics logo there, I probably would not use green icons because my overall dashboard theme would be blue and gray. So I probably want to stick to like either blue or gray icons here. For this particular example, let's look at consistency, right? Within the band area, I have 3 icons. All 3 of those icons have black circles behind them. I wouldn't want to have one of these icons, you know, randomly without a black circle, because then that wouldn't be consistent for the icons that are within the same real estate area. For this particular example, we have a lot of real estate areas. I like to say that we have 3. On the left-hand side, we have this webinars panel that has the webinars that are upcoming and previous. All of those icons have the same look and feel. They're all silhouette icons. Then we have our band area here where we have the band numbers and we have icons above it. And all of those icons have the same look and feel to them as well. They're all solid icons. And then you have your filter and your export area. And all of those icons have the same look and feel to them as well. So I would say just make sure that if you have different real estate areas on your dashboard, that the icons within those real estate areas have the same look and feel to them. And here's a marketing dashboard, same thing. We have the band areas here. All of those icons have the same look and feel to them. And then in the top right corner, we have our export and filter buttons, and all of those icons have the same look and feel. And our icons go with our overall dashboard color scheme of gray and yellow. And here's an example of what you do not want to do with your icons, right? We have all of these icons within the band area. They all are in the same real estate area, but you have that one customer icon that is just sticking out compared to the others, which are all silhouette icons. So here's an example of where you would probably want to change this customer icon to a silhouette icon to go along with the other ones. And these are our icon and art guidelines. If you're ever looking for icons, my favorite website is flaticon.com. With a free account, you can edit your icons to blend in with your dashboards. So an example would be this particular dashboard right here in the screenshot. The 2 icons you see at the top, those are not the original colors of them. By creating a free account on flaticon.com, I was able to edit the various aspects of each of the icons and change it to match my dashboard color scheme. So that you can do that with a free account. Really great gallery. The Now Project and Icons 8, those are paid subscriptions. I think it's $100 a year, maybe for both, but they also have really great galleries as well, and you can edit those icons too. Let's talk about choosing colors that matter. So the first thing you want to do when you're selecting colors for your dashboard is you want to make sure that you let the brand colors form the basis of the dashboard. So by the basis of the dashboard, I mean like your titles, your footers, your worksheet titles, your icons. You want to pick that one dominant brand color and let it form the basis of your dashboard. If you're stuck on how to color or even lay out your dashboard, it's okay to get inspiration from art and other visualizations out there. I'll say that whenever I'm starting a dashboarding project, my first stop is Tableau Public and then Pinterest. And usually I'm just Googling or searching whatever topic I need to create a dashboard for. So if it's healthcare, I'll type healthcare dashboards. Same thing with Pinterest, financial dashboards, marketing dashboards, see what returns and be inspired. And then, take bits and pieces of it and create my own thing and give attribution to the authors that I was inspired by. When you're selecting colors for your dashboard, you also want to make sure that you're limiting the number of dominant colors to no more than 2. By dominant color, I mean anything that's not like a really light gray or white. The reason being is because obviously if you have too many colors on your dashboard, it's distracting. And typically if you have a dominant color on your dashboard and you're using it strategically, you can use it to draw your end user's eyes to the things that you want them to pick up on. As you're creating your dashboards, make sure you're using accessible color schemes and testing them. You know, never assume that your end user can see the dashboard the same way that you can. So whenever I have a dashboard and I'm using color to like highlight something on that dashboard, various shades of it, I always take a picture of it and I plug it into a color blindness simulator, and I'll share with you all the simulator that I use just to make sure that someone who might have like a color blindness deficiency can still see like those various shades. As you're using color on your dashboard, make sure you use color purposefully and for reinforcement. What that means is don't just put color on every single chart that you have, right? Ask the question of, is there something that I need to highlight? Do I want to draw attention to something? Obviously, you don't want to draw attention to all of the bars, right? Maybe you want to highlight the maximum bar or the min bar or both of them. And when you ask that question, that's what you want to draw attention to with color. That's when you want to use color. Or maybe you have a chart that's using two different colors, right? Maybe you want to draw attention. The idea is if you're looking at like the gender gap and you want to draw attention to like the females, right? Then you would color the females and you would leave the males a neutral color. You don't necessarily have to color both of them, right? Especially if your insight is that there's a gender gap or a wage gap, you know, with females, then your topic is females, so you want to highlight females. And last but not least, if you're stuck, design in grayscale. I actually create all of my dashboards in grayscale, and I go sheet by sheet once it's on the dashboard, and then I add color to it. I always ask that question, is there anything I want to highlight? And if the answer is yes, then I use color to highlight it. If the answer is no, then I'll just leave it alone and leave it as a neutral color and probably just sort it if it's a bar chart or something. So here's an example of getting inspiration from art and other visualizations that are out there. So I found this dashboard on Pinterest. I was searching like modern dashboards, and what I liked about it was obviously the layout and the color scheme. So I took bits and pieces of it and I created the dashboard that you see on the right-hand side. Here is an example of using color purposefully and for reinforcement. So on the left-hand side, we're making sure we use color purposefully when we're comparing two investments. One investment is colored blue, the other is colored gray. So I'm making sure I keep those colors consistent throughout and don't accidentally change them for one of the charts. Then on the right-hand side, when we look at the investment performance dashboard, here I'm using color for reinforcement. Anywhere you see that dark blue bar, I am reinforcing that that is the maximum value. So once you see that up top with these charts, even though the maximum value is at the bottom of this chart because it's sorted alphabetically, your eye is still drawn to that bar and you automatically know that that is the maximum value. So using color for reinforcement. Here's another example of using color for reinforcement. As I mentioned, I'm typically designing in grayscale and I'm asking that question of, is there something I want to highlight on each of my worksheets? 9 times out of 10, I'm just using one dominant color to highlight it. So you will usually see my dashboards as a dominant color and everything else being gray. So here we have the blue and the gray, and here we have the orange and the gray, and we're using color very strategically to only highlight where necessary. And here's an example of creating accessible color schemes and testing them. So even though the color changes drastically for red week, red blind, green week, green blind, because I'm using the black background and I'm using a dominant color to highlight where necessary and a neutral color for everything else, what you'll see is that the end user, regardless of if they have a color blindness deficiency or not, their eye is still able to pick up on those bars that are highlighted because everything else is a neutral color. So this will pass the color blindness test. And I plug this into colorblindness.com and they have a simulator on that site. Here's an example of what you do not want to do, right? Reds and greens, your default color palettes within Tableau. If somebody is red blind, they're not going to know if Texas or California is the highest here. So try to stay away from them and definitely go with a different color scheme, or maybe just highlight the state that has the lowest sales with one color and the highest sales with another color. So let's wrap it up with fonts. So when you're selecting fonts for your dashboard, you want to make sure that you stick to one legible font. There have been so many times where clients have sent me dashboards and they're like, fix this. And the first thing I fix is the fact that they have like 5 different fonts within the workbook, right? So the easiest way to get around this is to select format in your toolbar and then format your workbook and just pick one font. You always want to have consistency with your font throughout. Then you want to make sure you're using no more than 4 sizes of that font type. So we're talking about font consistency. Once again, all of your worksheet headers should have the same size. All of your dashboard titles, if you have multiple dashboards in one workbook, all of those should have the same size. All of the labels on your bars, if you have different bar charts in one dashboard, all of those should have the same size. Any captions and annotations you have, all of those should have the same size. Make sure you're just keeping your sizes consistent throughout your entire workbook. Try to avoid custom fonts if possible, especially if you're working with like Tableau Online or Tableau Public, because not all fonts are compatible. So if you downloaded a font from online and it looks great on your machine, and then you go to upload it to Tableau Public or Tableau Online and you see that, you know, it renders a little bit different, that's because that font is not available on the Tableau server. So now you have to, you know, use a font that is compatible and change all of the fonts within your workbook. So definitely try to avoid custom fonts if possible. Also be strategic with your fonts and your background colors. And we're talking about accessibility again. Now we're talking about contrast accessibility, because if you have a background color, like a dark background color, and you have somewhat of a dark font color on top of it, then there isn't going to be enough contrast between those two for your end users to easily pick up on it. So always test as well to make sure that there is a high enough ratio between your background color and your font colors. Use color and or bolding to emphasize any text on your dashboard that you want your end user's eyes to pick up on. So if you have a large body of text, just never assume that your end user is going to read that large body of text. Just try to highlight something using color or by bolding, you know, a sentence or two or some stats within that paragraph. Also, if you are creating charts and you have, say you have a chart that looks at, once again, like males and females, and the chart title says males versus females, and you have the bars colored males and females, one color for males, one color for females. Use color in your title as well. So whatever color your female bar is, use that same color to color the word female in the title of the chart. And the same thing with males, right? So that your end user's eyes are picking up on that, and then you don't even have to have like a legend on your dashboard. So that's using font color strategically. And last but not least, stay away from center alignment. Try to left align everything if it's a large body of text, only like center align labels and smaller bodies of text, because you're going to force your end user to pick up on like where each line begins and ends, and it just adds like more processing time for a larger bodies of text. So here's the accessible colors tool that I use that allows me to test the background color as well as the text color. I plug in my text color, I plug in my background color, and then I get to see if it passes the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines ratio for online digital material. And if it does not pass, it tells me the new background color that I could potentially change it to, and it tells me a new text color that I could change it to so that it does pass. Here's an example. For this COVID dashboard that I created last year or 2 years ago, actually, the yellow on the blue background, I wanted to make sure the end users can see it, especially where it says versus prior day, because that is a really small text on that blue background. Plugged it in and it passed, right? High enough ratio. Here, if I darken that font color, it does not pass, and the tool provides me with 2 new colors to either change the background or the text to. Same thing with blues and grays, some of the hardest colors to see. So always make sure if you have blues and grays, you're testing them as well. In this case, it passed. In this case, it did not, the lighter gray background. So in summary, start with your audience and their requirements, build your template and add your views, incorporate design elements that will enhance your story, and add color strategically, icons for charm, and use the rule of 4 when selecting fonts. And remember, anyone can be a designer. It's not something you're born with. It's not something exclusive to a select few. All it takes is practice while keeping a few design secrets in mind. And with that, thank you all so much for having me. I'm Chantilly Jaggernard. Here's my contact information, my Twitter handle. And if you would like to download the requirements document that I shared with you all earlier, it's at designsecretsforanondesigner.com.
Okay. Hey, thank you, Chantilly. That was great. You are really fantastic. You knew that. You didn't need me to tell you that. I was looking for questions. There were some questions that came up in the chat, but I think you answered all of them. And Michael, yes, you'll be able to get Chantilly's information right off her website. Zach, our next speaker, came in, and he mentioned that he uses Color Oracle for color blindness test. I imagine there's a number of them out there, a number of different sites that you could use, but he does use Color Oracle. Are you familiar with that site? It's
I'm
okay to
not,
stay
but
vague.
yeah, but that's a good one too.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. I wish when I was putting on my blog that I had your information, because it would have made life a whole lot easier. I'm just scrolling as I'm reading. Okay. Yes, Michael is satisfied. He'd asked a couple questions, but you covered them off later in the presentation. Thank you so much. Really,
Thank you all for
really
having
appreciate it. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. Eric, are you ready to go with the quiz?
I am ready. You should be able to see my screen. If everyone will go to kahoot.com and log in with this pin, we will get started. We've got a couple of poll questions this week. We are having an in-person event on the last Wednesday in May following the Tableau conference. We're thinking of having it somewhere down south, probably Brentwood or Franklin. And we would love to have everyone attend. Try to get back together. All right, we'll give it another minute or so for people to join. We have 2 gift certificates this month, so the top 2 prize winners will get to take something home. And if you're a prior winner, share with us what you got. I was a winner in another tug meeting and got a nice hoodie from Tableau, so cool. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and start. If you're in the middle of joining, keep joining. And the first 2 poll questions don't actually count towards your score, so let's get going. This is the April Tug quiz. Ready, set, go. Where would you attend an in-person Nashville Data Night Out? The Tin Roof 2 in Cool Springs, the Brew House South in Cool Springs, the Corner Pub in Brentwood, or I'm not interested, I data alone at home. Let us know what you prefer. Hopefully not the last one. But there are no wrong answers. This is just a poll. All right, Corner Pub is in the lead. All right, so what is the best time for a data night out on Wednesday, May 25th? 3:30 in the afternoon, because this is really work. 4:30, out of work early, or 5:30, just after work, and 6:30, look, no traffic. I have my preference, but I'm going to bite my lip. All right, so we got early and late. I like both of those. Here we go. The quiz starts with, what does / allow you to do in calculated fields? Arithmetic, percentages, ratios, or multi-line comments? May not have mentioned, this is all about calculations. Correct. Multi-line comments. All right, Pam is in the lead. The quicker you answer, the more points you get. So comments are good. You can use / for single line comments or / for multi-line comments. I knew that from SQL, but I've never used it in Tableau. So I learned something this week. All right, you must manually type square brackets when using data source fields in calculated fields, true or false. You must manually type them. True or false? The answer is false. There are several ways to get data source fields in. My preferred way is drag and drop. All right, Al took the lead. Next, which is not a frequently used table calculation? Window, walking, running, or rank? 3 of them are table calcs and 1 is not. So which one is not? Correct answer is walking is not a table calculation. All right. Al is still in the lead. You can mix aggregates and non-aggregates in a calculation. True or false? This has always plagued me. I bet it's not a problem for Jim though. Seems to have all this calculation stuff down.
Number one question we get out on the forum is right there.
Yeah. And the
Spring people
answer
didn't do
is
it.
false. Yeah, you cannot mix them. You'll get that big error message if you try. Okay, what does LOD mean in table calculations? Layers of data, least ordered dimension, level of detail, or last on the dashboard? What does LOD mean in Tableau calculations? Correct answer, level of detail. Very important calculation type, very useful. And table calculations are last in the order of operations. True or false? Hopefully everybody is familiar with the order of operations. Oh, obviously not. So the correct answer is true.
The
And
answer was on the screen.
I will say, this is straight from jimdiener.com. If you need to learn about the order of operations, he has some great blogs. All right, next. Are you attending Tableau conference? Last question, only one wrong answer. Was it maybe? When is it? It's in May. In person in Las Vegas, come out and join Jim and I, or virtually from Nash Vegas, or not this year. Hopefully you didn't choose not this year. All right, look who jumped up to the lead. Nick Sager, I'll bet. I'm assuming that's what the S is for. Way to go, Nick.
S is for super, but I'll take Sager. That's fine.
All right, well, I wonder, is that Al or AI? Do we have an AI playing today? I'm surprised.
No,
it
it's
didn't
Al.
win.
Alvin.
Is that Al?
Oh, I thought I beat the computer.
Well, if you two will email Jim your in the chat your email addresses, he will send you the gift certificates in an email. Thank you all for playing, and we will get started. Let me end this share, and we'll switch over to our next intro.
Our next speaker is none other than Zach Bowders. Zach is a JLL data specialist, Tableau visionary, and ambassador, and the host of Data Plus Love podcast, which I'm still waiting on my invite to be on the episode, Zach. He has nearly 200 public data visualizations and have received 6 Visitor Day picks and 2 Vizzy Awards. If you're not following Zach on Tableau Public, then I highly recommend you do that ASAP. Take it away, Zach.
Great. Can everybody still hear me? All right. So before I kick this off today, I did want to say that I saw Chantilly do a similar presentation to that back at Tableau Conference 2019. And she had the biggest response I have ever seen from an audience. She was literally mobbed at the end of the presentation. She had about 50 people approach the stage, all with like questions and praises. So very exciting. Anyway, I am Zach Bowders, as previously introduced, and I'm here to talk to you today about visionary velocity. Previously, Tableau has an honor called Tableau Zen Master, and they have changed it to visionary now. So, you know, you could have done like, I don't know, 0 to Zen, which I think Jim has done before, but, you know, I jumped on the alliteration and beat him to this one. So sorry, Jim. So I am Zach. You can follow me on Twitter at Zach Bowders. I'm on LinkedIn and all other businessy social medias. I am a Tableau visionary inspired by Chantilly, who just presented. In my current second term, I'm also a two-term Tableau ambassador for the social media aspect. So you may see me on there sort of pumping people up or encouraging them. 7-time Visit the Day recipient, Vizzy Award winner, which is a community award, and I host the Data Plus Love podcast, which you probably have heard many of your previous guests on. So feel free to take a snap at the QR code if you want or not. Edward Tufte famously said, PowerPoint presentations too often resemble a school play. Very loud, very slow, and very simple. And that was, a good 19 years ago. But if you go to his website today, it looks very much like it did 19 years ago. And you can tell that by visiting the Wayback Machine. Anyway, ironically, when Tufte said that in a class I was in, he was actually using PowerPoint to discuss the flaws of PowerPoint. So I found that particularly amusing. Having said that, we often use PowerPoint to present like I am right now. So we're not going to knock it too hard. We're just going to plow right ahead here. I'm not going to waste my time doing stuff like Tableau visualization online if I'm not having fun. And that's my personal thought. I tried doing it other ways and it just didn't work out for me really well. Also, there's a 10 billion% chance that you're going to burn out unless you find a method of learning that invigorates and inspires you. And I also know this for a fact because I've tried to learn many things that I couldn't really find something to hook my claws into. And I got bored, burned out, and quit doing them. But I didn't quit doing this. I've been doing this publicly for about 5 years, and it has genuinely changed my life and my career in many ways. So a lot of people like bulleted summaries. They want to know what's coming. So for you sticklers, here is where this is headed. We're going to talk about public work, collaboration, and finding or creating your niche, because it may not exist yet, or it may be out there just waiting for you to jump in and find it. So one of the first things you can do to sort of boost your enthusiasm in career is to start participating in public work. Now, you may be saying, but I work all day already. I don't want to do more of this. And that's fair. But I doubt you work every minute of every day. And I'm willing to bet you also have some extra time every now and then that you could use a little more productively. I happen to work at a place, JLL, which in addition to using templates like Chantilly was showing off, also provides us some time to learn, whether it be the Ultrix Adventure or Tableau Quest. We actually have gamified learning internally. And part of that is encouraging us to do public visualization, not only because it's good for the brand to show, hey, look, JLL and us know what they're doing, but also it's good for us because it gives us extra cycles to practice doing things we wouldn't otherwise do at work. And one of the painful and awkward things about dipping your toe and doing your first public work is realizing you might not be at the same place as everyone else. In fact, you're not going to be, and that's okay because everybody starts somewhere and that somewhere is different for everyone. If you look at the screen right now, you'll see a visualization by Jared Flores. Jared is very mature in his work, and even in some of his very first visualizations, you'll see that it is well formed, well thought out, well documented, and looks really nice. And it looks like something that he probably produces at work right now. And if you would go on and look at some of his public visualizations, not all of them look like that, but this is his starting point. If you look at Judith Becker from Hungary, who's also a two-term Tableau visionary, you'll see that her first viz starts in a really different place. It's actually a lot more cartoony, bright, colorful, more creative. It's got little icons of people in them representing different ideas. It's got like little call outs. It's very different from Jared's, but not a less valid approach. They're both different starting places that are sort of more representative of either what they were experiencing at work or maybe what their personal aesthetics are. This is Luke Abraham's first Tableau visualization. It's incredibly mature and sophisticated. So sometimes when you see people's first work, your temptation might be, well, I'm new to this. That's not where I am. But they might not be new to it. It just might be the first time they've done something publicly. Alternatively, maybe they're a savant, but no one out there in the Tableau public community is looking to judge you or knock you down based on what you're putting out. In fact, people are generally very encouraging and want to help boost new voices. They're very excited by them. All three of these were done using public data sets. I believe all three were Makeover Monday, which is currently on a hiatus. But it is an exercise that spans several years and has many, many public data sets that they released with the idea of giving people an opportunity to practice in public, see what other people did and learn from that. Because if you have the same tool, the same data set, and come up with a different thing than someone else, but you really like some ideas they did, there's no reason you couldn't do the same thing. This is my first public data visualization. So this was back in July 2017, and it looks a lot like what we were doing at my job at the time. We were using call out boxes to mention some of the bigger findings within the data, and all those actually could have changed if I had kept updating this data set automatically. They're calculated in such a way, using bars with a different measure on top of them to juxtapose things. Those are great for comparing, say, budgets versus actuals and that sort of thing. But like I said, it's very much like what I was doing with work. I just took a little more liberty with color and creativity. So incorporating a picture of M. Night Shyamalan, or actually incorporating critics across the bars. But I wanted to do more than what I was doing at work. You know, oftentimes within your working environment, you have a specific Viz standard that you might need to follow, or specific expectations of what your clients are looking for. And a lot of times when people are feeling inspired of how can I do this differently, I want to feel more fulfilled within this. One of the first things they do is start going nuts with color on their work products. You'll see stuff where people have implemented rainbows across all bars, or, you know, have done like a really vivid background. I remember once I was sort of coaching a younger analyst at a previous role, and he had this dashboard that they were saying all these great, like all the executives were really into this dashboard that he created. They're saying it's great, you know, we'd love for you to see it, and, you know, and pick his brain about what he's doing. And his dashboard had a bright red background, and beside that, it was just a tabular view with 50 columns going across and thousands of rows down, where you had to scroll both vertically and horizontally to see everything on it. And my first thought was, well, I mean, it's an Excel sheet, but also you used color ineffectively, because the thing that you're drawing most attention to on the dashboard is not the data, literally the background. So, you know, it's very tempting, specifically when you're wanting to feel more engaged and excited by what you're doing, to start going nuts with things like that. But maybe finding a different route to get to that could serve you better. So this is where I am now. This is my last public visualization. I've done 196 that are published out there. I have a couple I'm holding back and still working on. But obviously, I was talking about going nuts with color. This was a perfect opportunity to do that in that way that I wouldn't do in a work product, but was perfectly apropos for my topic at hand. In this case, it's basically a summary of the entire John Wick trilogy franchise, starting on the left with the 3 films, going to the next column over with which locations occur in each film. And the data that's being highlighted here is who John Wick killed at which location and with which tool and who they were. So you can see that handgun is his preferred method. You can see that the coronation ceremony in Rome is the largest location, and that henchmen are kind of the, you know, top of the pile because they're cannon fodder. But I do this because I'm still curious. You know, I don't have to be out there doing public data visualization. I have a very nice job that I'm happy with, that I got in part by doing some of this, but also by being part of the community that sort of established, you know, what I was able to do, and also that I was good to work with. So that's one of the benefits of getting out there and doing stuff a little publicly. And still being curious, I, you know, want to be involved in various activities. So going back to our idea, you know, we're going to talk about 3 big things about this, and one of them is collaboration. So doing stuff by yourself, you can learn a lot by, you know, going out and looking at what other people have done and doing tutorials and that sort of things. But honestly, the bigger you can make your pool of knowledge, especially with others involved, the faster you're going to grow and learn. For example, if you're sitting in a desk by yourself in an office, and let's just remove social media, like let's just say you're operating in a vacuum, maybe you have some internal dashboards from your company that you've seen before. Your idea of what you can do and what you are able to do is going to be a lot more limited, because you don't know the full extent of what's possible. But the greater you expand your reach by maybe participating in online exercises, following different users, participating in these different things, you're going to be able to facilitate greater growth in yourself. If for no other reason, then you're going to see a lot of good stuff And you might not know what's bad at first also, because not everything that everyone puts out is good all the time. I've made plenty of stinkers, and I'll show you some later. But by seeing a lot of good stuff, you'll quickly learn stuff that works and what doesn't work. And you might not even be able to put words to it at first, but you'll be able to eventually. And by doing that, when you are producing work product in the future that's not on the side, you'll understand quicker what the best ways to do the things you want to do are, rather than maybe fumbling through some things that are less elegant. So right here are some online exercises that are community-based, that have online data sets, and that encourage people to either collaborate or just take place in this exercise, share their work, and look at what others have done and comment on it. So it's a great opportunity to see what others are doing with the same ideas and learn together. So the graphic on the left is meaningless. This is PowerPoint though, so we expect graphics like this. So, working together with others is great. But as Napoleon Hill said, it is literally true that you can succeed best and quickest by helping others to succeed. And part of the reason for that is, it's quietly selfish helping others, because if you have to explain how something works to someone else, then you actually have to understand it yourself. So sometimes digging into a problem that someone else is having or collaborating with someone else is a vulnerable act. You're having to put out there, maybe I don't know everything, but it will help you learn. And I'll tell you this, being a Tableau visionary was something I never sought out, and it was something I never thought I would have. And it's still incredibly intimidating to this day, because a lot of expectation falls on you. You think everyone expects you to know everything, but that's not really the case. Like, really the expectation on you is to be positive, support others, elevate, people doing great things, and just generally be a cheerleader, while also pushing for the idea of making awesome visualizations. No one's perfect. No one's ever going to know everything, and that includes you. So go easy on yourself. So here is an example of 3 different collaborations that I participated in with 3 different friends I've had online, Kate, Adam, and Sarah. I've done several more than this, but I'm going to talk you through each of these and how I grew through each of these collaborations with them. So Kate and I are friends that had known each other on Twitter for a while and met in person at Tableau Conference 19 in Las Vegas. And in the wake of that, we were talking about how it'd be really fun to do something together, but we wanted to find a topic we were sort of mutually passionate about. So I do a lot of geeky topics, Kate does a lot of travel topics, but what's something we could find in the middle that we were both fascinated by? And one of these things was Girl Scout cookies, not in the sense that Girl Scout cookies are awesome, because they are, but where does all the money go? Because I see all these little kids out there hawking cookies, and then I have 2 daughters, neither of them wants to do Girl Scouts, ironically, so don't blame me for this. But I have friends that have daughters in the Girl Scouts, and they talk about all the fees they pay and all the equipment they have to buy and all the clothes they're paying for. And I say, well, where does all that Girl Scout cookie money go? And we're in luck, because the Girl Scout website has a lot of data on where the Girl Scout cookies go. So this was a long form, tall visualization we created together by passing a workbook back and forth. And if we sort of step through it, it covers how many girls are out there every year selling how many boxes of cookies for a gross revenue of $800 million, with Thin Mints being the most popular cookie. And if you were to actually mouse over this, so if you were to pull this up on my Tableau Public, you'd see that for each year we incorporated facts from the Girl Scout websites about the cookies and the brand. But we can see that over half of the money for the cookie sales goes to the council, 27% to the bakery, 15%, stays with the troops, with the individual troops themselves, and only about 5% actually makes it back to the girls themselves. So they're getting paid very little ultimately for something that feels like, if the Girl Scout brand were to just sell these in stores, maybe, I understand the entrepreneurial aspect of the girls selling the cookies, but maybe the girls would come out a little better personally in the end if these were a little more accessible. And we also include some options at the bottom for you to click on a cookie and make direct donations directly to girls, sort of circumventing the process. So a little subversive. Look, we like the Girl Scouts, we're not knocking them, but maybe the Girl Scout cookie process isn't necessarily the best. So in doing this, she and I tried a lot of visual methods we hadn't tried before. We learned how to collaborate in the same workbook, as you might have to sometimes, the coworker passing it back and forth, picking up where someone else left off. And at the end of the day, it was my 100th public visualization, and something we were both very proud of. Adam Miko, who is now the chief, what is he? He's like the chief data officer at Moderna. At the time we did this, he was a Wisconsin state employee. So he's had an incredibly productive 2 years. But Adam was starting off an online data fan blog, mostly based around, him talking about what's going on with data and getting different people's perspectives and stuff, and tagged me and asked me if I would, work with him and create sort of a free-flowing gonzo style blog post about some of the different wacky charts I've created in the past. This one in particular you see is Nicolas Cage Rotten Tomatoes scores, juxtaposing the variance between critics and audience in his various movies. So the smaller the bar length, the closer critics and audience were in their agreement on the score. The greater the bar length vertically, it means the audience liked it a lot more than the critics, and the further it hangs down, the more critics liked it than the audience. Now, mind you, it doesn't mean it's good or bad. I mean, obviously, the greater the difference between the two of those, the greater the odds that one was really good and one was bad. And if you hovered on them, you would see. But really, it's digging into the fact that his movies really divide critics and audiences, with a couple of highlights called out there, like National Treasure being a crowd pleaser, and Honeymoon in Vegas being a critical darling. And this was an opportunity for me to sort of put some words to my work, because honestly, when you're at work and you're creating visualizations, oftentimes you don't have to explain them as much. You're having to create something that someone else could pick up without having your documentation and have to understand what's going on in your dashboard or work product. So having to actually talk through some of the stuff I had done and why and where my thought process was a different opportunity for me to explore what I was doing and what my interests were in data visualization. My third opportunity was with Sarah Bartlett, who hosts Iron Quest. So every year at the Tableau conference, we have Iron Viz, which is a on-stage competition of 3 contestants, each having to construct a visualization in 20 minutes. They've all been selected through a feeder pool where there is a contest to get into that. And Iron Quest is a sort of recreation of that process, both for the sake of allowing people to practice for the contest, but also allowing people to get some of those public reps in and try different ideas. So each month she has a different theme, whether it be mobile first, which is something that is a big gap for a lot of us in the Tableau community, or black and white, eliminating color as an option, or just various things to allow you to stretch different muscles. So she asked me if I would co-host a month with her for the mobile first month. And what you're seeing on screen are those mobile first selections. And as part of that, I had to create my own visualization, which is hidden back in the middle there, comparing tweets between me and Luke Stanky about which is better, tacos or pizza, but also having to do a session where we reviewed the entries of the various participants and sort of talked about the stuff that we thought really worked well and maybe things that could be improved upon. And it was a great opportunity to, again, flex some of those muscles. And by having to explain which stuff works and what doesn't, be able to develop that visual vocabulary where I can explain why things work and why they don't. Because once again, it's one thing to learn, the process of, what's good and what's not, but being able to express it to others and why it works is a skill that's very valuable. So what do I care about? Again, here's another PowerPoint smart art clip, but I am kind of a nerdy guy. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm very into design stuff, and I like pop culture, whether it be like movies or books or sci-fi, that sort of stuff. And that's sort of the stuff that sort of comprises me. Like what is the stuff that really matters to you? So I didn't really care about these things. These were some different Makeover Monday exercises that I participated on earlier in my public visualization. And some of them are really, really cringy to me now, frankly. But you can see in these cases where someone is wanting to express themselves and do stuff that they could not do at work. And sometimes you see this in people's work products too, when they're trying to express themselves and you understand where they're coming from, but it's like, maybe not the case to try, I don't know, endless circle plot here or something. So these were things I didn't care about. I wasn't really interested in the topics. I was trying to find a way to amuse myself with them. And you can kind of tell that because none of them are that great and I wasn't that passionate about them. So again, why am I not doing the things I care about if I know I'm into podcasting, design, and pop culture? No one's making me do these data sets that I don't care about. So why am I choosing to do those if I don't like the end result, if I wasn't really passionate about it? I only have so much time in life. I'm married with 2 kids. I work all day. Like if I'm going to be doing something, I might as well enjoy it, going back to my earlier thought. Like if I'm going to try to develop myself, it needs to be in such a way that drives me and makes me want to do it. So what if I actually did the things that I liked? So here are 3 topics that I was interested in. On the left, you'll see the Scoville scale, which measures the levels of capsaicin found in different peppers, where I got to try an unorthodox chart type I never would have attempted otherwise, trying to make the heat look like the eye of a stove. And obviously, everything to the left of this does not matter. It's a visual element. We're ultimately comparing bar charts here, but what we're able to see is on this scale, how much peppers like the Carolina Reaper, Pepper X, and Dragon's Breath blow out things like the jalapeno that we take for granted every day. So the Scoville scale on that, the jalapeno takes 5,000 of units of water to every 1 unit of pepper to completely neutralize any sensation of heat, compared to Pepper X's 3.18 million units of water to every unit of pepper. So, I mean, it's a staggering difference. And while it's visually junky, you couldn't get away with this at work. It caught your attention when you first looked at it, and that's why I did it. In the upper right corner, you'll see the plot of the movie Inception. So Christopher Nolan movies are tangly and weird and often hard to express, particularly if you end up watching Inception with your mother-in-law and she insists that you pause it every 5 minutes to ask if they're still in the dream, and then asks which dream they're in because they're now at an ice fortress and not a hotel. How can they still be in the dream? So you actually have to think about, how would I express that if it were a map? So if you look at the white at the top as being conscious and the black portion as you plunge down into the dream state, within the film, each dream that exists is someone's dream. So that particular path stops at that point and everyone else continues down to the next dream and the next dream until they ultimately have to wake back up again, which is the far right side of them returning back up, waking out of the previous dreams, and then continuing on to the waking world. This was an opportunity for me to learn about mapping Cartesian coordinates, because Tableau is ultimately a point mapping tool. We don't think of it that way. We think of it as a data visualization tool, but there's lots of forms of data. And in this case, if you draw a box on a piece of paper, you're actually mapping out some coordinates. And you can do that exact same thing in Tableau, thus sort of creating your own maps. So once you understand how the tool works, you're able to do things unorthodox that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. The bottom chart looks at horror movie reviews on Rotten Tomatoes for the first 3 movies in a variety of horror movie franchises to give us an idea of how quickly some franchises drop off versus others, with the Leprechaun in the upper right-hand corner being one of the most egregious offenders, and some things like Scream, which is further to the left and upper corner, being less offensive overall in terms of how quickly they got bad. So all these were different ideas that, because I was interested in, because I used different techniques I wouldn't use at work, and because I was able to make something that didn't have to be continually updated, I tried new ideas. And in doing this, I always learned something that was able to not just bring back to my work product, but also get faster in doing it. So something else I care about is podcasts. I listen to a lot of them on a lot of different topics, a lot of comedy, a lot of history, a lot of entertainment and culture. So I realized within the data community, we see a lot of really cool products that people are putting out there in terms of visualization, but oftentimes we don't know a lot about the people behind them outside of maybe short snippets you see on social media or them appearing at a tug. And also, I really enjoyed at Tableau Conference 2019, the ability to sit down and talk with some of these folks and get to know them better. And I wanted to keep that going. So at the beginning of 2020, not long before COVID hit, I started the Data Plus Love podcast, which gave me the opportunity for at least the first 2 years to primarily focus mainly on having just conversations with people about data and what they found interesting and the various projects they worked on. And it's a great way to get to know some people and sort of understand the person behind the viz. And then more recently, I've also begun doing more short story data stories about things like the Boston Massacre, which was when a giant vat of molasses flooded downtown Boston in the 1800s, and sort of getting behind some of the data on that. How much molasses is there? How fast is it going? 30 miles an hour, faster than you can run. How high does it go? 2 stories, taller than your school bus, stuff like that. So in order to look at some data stories and make little short snippets out of them, a different way of looking at historical things or pop things than we might look at them otherwise. So there's a play called Title of Show, and I am ripping this off from Mike Cisneros, who gave a presentation at Tableau Conference before. But in Title of Show, there's a song that says, "I'd rather be 9 people's favorite thing than 100 people's 9th favorite thing." And the point of that being, there's a lot of stuff we can try to do to sort of pursue attention. And in doing so, you may not be doing the thing that you really want to do authentically. So for example, there's sort of a perverse incentive with some online exercises where the idea behind the exercise might be to try to get you to learn best practices, but doing best practices doesn't get a lot of clicks. So maybe you want to try louder colors, bigger charts, that sort of thing to get more attention. And that sort of defeated the purpose of the exercise. And maybe you weren't doing the exercise for the right reasons. You're doing it because you're hoping, hey, I'm trying to build community, or I'd like to, for people to notice what I'm working on. And if I just do best practices, I won't, which takes us back to the idea of what are the things you're passionate about? Like, would you like to do a data podcast? Are you more interested in sports than Makeover Monday? You could be doing Sports Biz Sunday. There's stuff you can be doing that allow you to sort of pursue your area of interest and to grow, while at the same time also being sort of authentically you and enjoying it. So this is sort of my story and my progression if you were to break it down into like milestone events. So back in 2017, I published my M. Night Shyamalan Viz. By 2019, right before the end of the year, that's when I published that Girl Scout Cookie Viz with Kate Shaw, my 100th Viz. A couple months later, I started the Data Plus Love podcast. Later that year, I was nominated and announced to be a Tableau ambassador for the Tableau public. And by 2021, I became a Tableau Zen Master, known as a Tableau Visionary. And that's not to say that my journey is over or that everyone's path is linear. I spent a good 12 to 13 years in different software fields before I got into data. It wasn't a quick path. It wasn't a linear journey. But I eventually found something not only that I enjoyed doing at work, but I enjoyed doing it outside of work. And by doing exercises and things that I found to be personally rewarding and fun, that allowed me to have both a lot of personal growth, but a lot of career growth. So back to that bulleted summary from early on, also this is the end. Think about doing some public work. Get out there and do something in public, not only by doing the vulnerable thing and sort of putting it out there. You will grow by doing that, but also you're going to learn from other people at the same time. Collaborate, find other people to work with and do things that get you outside your comfort zone. You'll find new things that'll help you grow. And lastly, find or create that niche. Like if no one's doing a long form conversation podcast, maybe that's something you want to do. I mean, I'm doing it, but that doesn't mean you can't too. If you like doing sports business, get out there and do that. Find the thing that works for you. Don't just do the thing that's there because it's there. And with that, this has been Visionary Velocity, a Zach Bowders production. I will return to your tug at some point, maybe in person if you guys meet soon, but this is where you can find me. I'm really all over the place, and it has been a pleasure talking with you today.
Zach, thank you so much. I want to thank both you and Chantilly from the standpoint of the Nashville Tug. We were treated today to not just 2 outstanding presentations, but 2 outstanding members of the community. And I can only reinforce what Zach says about the community being open and accepting, and it's out there for everybody. You don't have to look or act like anybody else, to find your niche out in the community. Zach, I'm going to try to take over the screen now. And he said, hopefully. Okay. Whoops, you don't want to see that. I know you don't. You want to see this. Okay. And I just want to bring us up to speed. We're going to close out the meeting. There's a couple of real important things happening. Obviously, TC22 is happening in Las Vegas, live May 17th through the 19th. I'm going to be there. I know, unfortunately, Zach's unable to be there. Chantilly's going to be there. Eric's going to be there. If you see us there, if you're there and you see us, come up and say hello. We like to meet you. We like to know people in the community, and we're very accessible. If you're not coming to Vegas, the virtual meetings are available the 17th and the 18th. That's here in the Americas. I think outside the US, it's one day later. But May 17th and 18th, the virtual presentations are available. They are not the same, totally different. Okay, it's not just a replay of what's happening at the live presentations for the virtual presentations, and the reverse is true also. It requires a separate registration, so you have to go out. And sign up. For those people going to the virtual meetings, the schedule for the individual sessions, I think, is available. I think it's Friday. I think it's late this week. It's going to be available. I'm sorry, a little self-promotion. I'm going to have the opportunity to speak at TC22, and if you're there, please come out and see us. Tyler Weldon is the academic curriculum development manager for Tableau, and he and I are going to be talking about teaching Tableau, and we're going to be talking about how do you teach adults and how adults learn differently, and some of the things that I do that fit into exactly what the theory behind that is. So we're really looking forward, and do come out and see us. It's Wednesday at 4 o'clock. And just finishing off some of the other things happening tomorrow, Zach, this is another podcast. I don't know if you've been out to this. Annabelle Racone did the first one about 2 weeks ago. My Tableau story and my Tableau journey. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a live presentation, and I'm kind of anxious to see what that's going to look like. Now, for those of you out there, it is live, and you do have a chance to embarrass me by asking questions. So please feel free to load up and ask any questions that you want. I want to reinforce something that goes right along with what Zach was talking about, and that's the newbies group. This is a group that Klaus Schulte and I collaborate, and Klaus is in Germany. Klaus Schulte and I collaborate as the co-leaders of this group, and it's a group for people who are relatively new to Tableau. We want you to feel comfortable. The meeting is about your needs and what you want to know about, and the overall response to this has been just fantastic. We have 2 sessions. One is the Klaus and Jim segment. It says discrete or continuous, what to use and when. That's what we did last time. This next time, we're going to talk about the order of operation. And also Sarah Battersby is going to be speaking about mapping, and everybody loves mapping. Job seekers, real quick, Zach, JLL still looking for people?
We often are. So if you're looking for a job, reach out to me. I will look to see if there's anything that could plug you in. We're all remote. So as long as you can work in the US, it should be good.
Yeah. And of course, Tableau is always looking for people also. I'm going to bring this up again. We're looking to add to our leadership team, and we'd like you to be involved. We have opportunities for people. I know some people don't like to get out, and they don't like to be in front. They don't like to be on screen. They don't like to talk. That's fine. We got plenty of things that need to be done, that can be done. And if you're interested, please raise your hand or come to the next next meeting that we're planning, the outdoor event in May, and let's sit down and talk about it, because we'd love to have you out there. Speaking about the next meeting is going to be May 25th. It's going to be an outdoor social event. And Eric, do we have anything more that we can say about this meeting at this time, or are we pretty much done at this point?
Well, I've talked to the 3 places, and they had it available last week. So I've got to verify that we can get the corner pub room. That one is not outdoors, I don't think.
Okay.
But I think the other 2 probably have outdoor space. Yeah, May 25th, probably the corner pub, and I'll have to see with them what time I can get, and we'll send out a splash.
Okay, very good. And we will have another, and what we're planning for is a hybrid meeting in June, and you'll hear more about that as time goes on. Thank you for being here today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I'm sure all the other co-leaders want to thank you for being here also. And I'm going to remember to turn off the recording. We're going to stop recording now.